Hello, everybody. Thank you for giving so much love to all the episode before. I'm back with Janelle. So, Janelle is an author, a screenwriter, and an actor, and a coach, and she's a wonderful woman. So, thank you very much for being here, Janelle.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
So, my first question to you is if you can speak about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Well, I do a few different things. I primarily make movies and write books, but I get a tremendous love exploding from my heart when working with people. So I started coaching people when I was about 21 years old, and I started out in sales coaching, but that evolved, and now I work with people on a more spiritual level and help people move past their blocks in their lives so they can start to dive into their creativity in ways that fulfills them and brings more joy into the world.
Okay. So how did you get into, how did you get into acting? Was it from you already had the skills of being an actor, or was it a passion you wanted to, get into?
Both. It was a passion for sure. It was a dream. I had a very, very difficult adolescence. It was really, really painful. And it was something that I was able to focus on to be able to push me forward to change my life and make it better and have a dream and create a relationship with my future. And so I'm so grateful to my 16-year-old self that had that dream to be an actor and went for it.
Okay, so how did you find a way to get into acting? And how get into starting your own production house?
Yeah. So I got into acting first on the stage when I was young, very young, like a child and a teenager. And then I went into college and I went for acting. And I did all stage and all theater. And one day I was in a play, and a wonderful director, a film director, saw me and asked me to come be in a movie, a short film that he was doing. It was called Lucky Juliet. And I said, yes, of course. And then I just never really went back to the stage after that. And I started doing all movies and television and commercials and working behind the camera or working in front of the camera. And I moved to Hollywood and I started doing some acting there. But what I realized was I really, really wanted to bring a more positive message into the world with my acting, because television, you're telling a vision, and you are using light and color and sound and vibration, and you're creating a trance-like state in an audience, and it's like a form of hypnosis. And so I really wanted to make sure that I was using that magic in a really, really beautiful way. So I started to create my own content and work with my own team to create things that had that positive messaging to it, so I could help bring that into the world.
Okay, and how does it make you feel now? You wanted to become an actor. You had that passion in yourself, and you are an actor right now. So how does it feel to be an actor right now?
It feels so good. It feels so good to be able to set your mind to something and to do it, because you had the will, and you don't have to know how it happens or why it happens or how you're going to do it, but you just know that you're going to do it, and you go after it, and you don't stop, and you don't let anyone tell you no. Because especially with acting, a lot of people are going to tell you no. You're going to get a lot of no's and for different roles or different parts. And I just look at it as, okay, that's fine. They're not saying no to me, and I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep going. And that applies to every single job out there and every single dream that anyone can have, that you just have to keep going forward no matter what.
Okay, and how you think it affects your if you explore your passion, you got success in your passion. So how bad it hurts? Like, did it hurt your mental health by someone?
Sorry, you cut out a little bit. Did it hurt what?
Yeah, did it hurt your mental health by some or the other way?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it still does at some points, because, it's like you always want to be doing more and always want to be doing better. That's part of just being human. We want to grow. And so I have to always remind myself of where I was when I was 16 in comparison to right now, that I would be like, oh my gosh. And I think we as humans have to do that. We have to remind ourselves of not only where we want to go, but where we've come from. And so we can, give ourselves a pat on the back every now and again, because it can be really, really challenging mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of it. It's really, really hard, but it does pay off if you keep going for it.
Uh-huh. And what would be an advice to people who wants to become an actor, and or anyone who wants to start a production house?
I would say to just go for it. A lot of people think you need to go to school, and school can be really helpful. I went to film school too, but really the best advice I can give anyone is to just go for it. You have so many tools available to you on YouTube and Amazon. You can produce stuff with your iPhone. It's pretty amazing. You can just go for it. You can start performing monologues. There's things on TikTok now. People are getting millions and millions of views just by doing what they want to do and creating this stardom for themselves. And so I would say to just go for it and don't let anything stop you, because right now we're in the digital era where we can just go for it. And so just get out of your own way. Just say, okay, I'm just going to do this, and I'm just going to have fun with it. And I'm going to let go of all the humiliation or my fear of rejection. And I'm going to know that I'm not a reject, so there's no way I can be rejected.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for giving that wonderful advice. So how did you get from being an actor? How did you get into being a spiritual coach? What's the story behind that?
Well, they both were very, very side-by-side journeys. As I was working on being an actress in Hollywood, I was going through a lot of health issues, and so I went on a spiritual path because I wasn't really getting a lot of help with Western medicine. And so it just opened me up to a whole new world of how to heal myself using alternative methods, and how to think in different ways, and how to harness your emotions and release your emotions as a way to be more connected with yourself. And so I feel like it's all related, whether it's acting or it's healing or it's spirituality. It's all just channeling an energy through you, and it's a divine energy if you can allow it to be. And so I work with people, they don't have to be actors. They can be writers, or they can, be busy doing spreadsheets. It doesn't really matter. It's working through whatever that block is that is preventing you from being able to let that flow through you in a natural way.
And how did you say that as Western medicine didn't help? So how did spirituality help you?
Yeah, I think that there's a balance that you can find in spirituality, where there's a balance between the mind and the heart, and when you can access that, you can really embody spirituality in the human form, because we can't really just go into our heart as human beings. We have to also balance our minds too, because we can't help it. We think, we can go into meditation and we can go into a quiet place for a long time, but when we open our eyes back up and we go into life, we can't help it. We're going to think. And so for me, mind over matter, and being able to step into that feminine energy of love, I feel like that has been for me far more restorative and helpful than relying on any kind of medication or anything like that to be able to help me. I'm not saying, medication isn't helpful if it's necessary, but I found for me that it wasn't the end all be all. It wasn't everything that it, is made out to be in the modern world, that that spirituality is really our truest medicine that we can find and incorporate into our lives.
Okay, wonderful. What does spirituality really means to you? And do you think spirituality and religions are one? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Right, that's such a good question. Spirituality means to me connection. Mm-hmm. It really is. That's basically it in one word. Mm-hmm. It's feeling a connection to all that is. Mm-hmm. So going into your second question, I believe some people can find that in religion, and I think that's really valuable and really important for some people. But again, I don't think it's the end all be all, because not everyone does connect with religion, and that doesn't really necessarily work for them. But I think that it can, it does for many, many people. So it's not anything wrong with religion. For me, I never grew up in any kind of religious, like religion with my family. And so I explored spirituality in a different way. And I still find myself to be very, very spiritual without being religious.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, that's a totally a new viewpoint you spoke about. So are you into meditation, doing meditation or something?
Yeah, I do meditation. I practice meditation regularly. I think that it's really, really important. I have a hard time just going into the quiet place and meditating without doing guided meditation. I really get a lot out of guided meditation, and so there's a lot of go-tos that I go to, and I also incorporate that a lot in with people that I work with. I just started a YouTube channel, and I started putting some of my meditations on there because my clients have asked me to do so. And so because it can be helpful, because sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, like, oh my gosh, I have to meditate, but I don't know how, or it's hard, or I can't get my mind clear. And so it can be really helpful to have that guide. And now again, it's like there's so many things on YouTube. We can just put it on real quick, and I do that with my kids as well. We put meditations on to help them fall asleep. So it's a good way to just start to practice that and incorporate those really positive messages into the brain.
Yeah. And how do you get into no thought meditation? Like, does it take you time, or does it, does it take some kind of pressure from your side to have no thoughts in your mind when you're doing meditation? Does it take something like that?
For me, I've been meditating for years now, so for me it's pretty quick. But at the beginning, it was really, really difficult. I was like, I couldn't ever get my mind to turn off. I couldn't get myself to calm down. But now after practice, and so I would want to encourage anyone, if they're having a hard time with meditation, to just keep practicing and not expect perfection. And it does get easier, and it will help, even if you think you're not doing it right.
Okay, yeah. So coming back to your acting career, how do you think how male dominated? Like, I have heard a lot of times that Hollywood is male dominated, but I have nothing about it. So I would like to know your thoughts on that. Like, is it really dominating, or what do you think about that?
Yes, I think it has been very, very male dominated. I don't think that's just Hollywood, though. I think that's pretty much every system in our modern world has been very, very male dominated. So I don't think Hollywood is any different from that. However, that is changing, and there's many, many more women that are starting to come forward and starting to do film. My team that I work with are, many of them are women, and they're very, very talented, and so that's been really, really fun. But yes, in the past it has been very male dominated, and especially in my early 20s, that was kind of hard. But it's getting better now, and I think that's a shift happening all over the whole entire world in every industry.
And how bad are you affected by the pandemic going all around the world right now?
Well, I live in California, and so we're on one of the strictest lockdowns in the whole entire country. We went on lockdown before anybody else, and we're going to probably stay on lockdown longer than anyone. They're very strict here. So I'm very blessed. I live in a community where the beach is never closed, and the trails never closed, and so I've spent actually more time in nature than I ever have in my adult life anyway. So I'm treasuring that, because I know that we're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat.
Yeah.
And it's really really hard. I mean, I've had certain things that have been difficult for me that I feel kind of silly even complaining about, but it's it has been challenging, I think, for everybody in our own ways.
Okay, and coming back to you being an author, so if you can speak about your author journey and how did you get into writing?
Sorry, you cut out again. I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, sure, no problem. If you can speak, you being an author, if you can speak about your author journey and how did you get into writing?
Yeah, for sure. So, my author journey, I started writing when I was very young. I started keeping a journal when I was 10 years old, and I kept a journal my whole life. And I was always working on a book, but it was never getting made. It was just never, ever, ever happening. And so finally, I just put my mind to it and said, okay, I'm going to do this. It doesn't need to be the best book in the entire world, because I think I had this pressure on myself, like, oh, this first book, it needs to be the best thing, and it has to be
Yeah.
ground shattering, and it has to be New York Times best selling, and that will just get you stuck forever. And it did. And so finally I was like, okay, you know what? It doesn't have to be the best thing in the whole entire world. It's going to be good, but it's, let me just get this book done. And I got it done, and the first one, and it went great. Like, it was an Amazon bestseller for 3 weeks running. It was very, very exciting, and it gave me a push. And so now I have multiple books that are going to be coming out this year, because I think really it is just, we make writing a book a bigger deal than it is. And when we just do it and we get it done, then it makes it a whole lot easier.
And how much time does it take to write a book?
It depends, because it depends on the length of the book, and also depends, I think, on the research. If you're doing a book that requires a tremendous amount of research, that will take a lot longer. Whereas if you're writing the book I'm working on right now is a memoir, and it doesn't require any research because it's just all based off of my memory. And so it's going very, very fast. I started writing it 2 weeks ago, and I'll probably have it done in another 3 weeks. So it can happen very, very fast, depending on what book it is. So I think that's the other thing, is like, we have in our heads that a book could take a year or 3, and some books could, certainly. But nowadays, people really like shorter books. They like 25,000 word books, because we don't have the same attention span that we used to. And so it's important, I think, to remember that if you want to go into a book writing journey.
Yeah. And how hard was for you being a writer? Was it did it had some difficulty, or you it was easy for you?
With writing the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure. There was difficulty, and there was a huge learning curve. It's, even though it's pretty straightforward on Amazon, there's lots of different things that you have to have with formatting and printing. And then I've got the first one printed, and I didn't like the way that it looked. And, there's lots of different things that come up that I think you just have to go through. I actually am now offering book coaching for people, because I've learned so much through this whole process. I know that I can help other people. So just to make it easier for them, because I was like, oh, I wish that I had somebody that could have made that a little bit easier. But yeah, it is challenging. And I think life is really challenging. And that's part of what helps us grow. It's just kind of looking at challenges differently than we have been taught to.
And do you have a team which edited and make a book cover for you, or is it just you do it by yourself?
No, I hired my team did my book cover for me. And there's tools on Amazon you can use, which is great. And you can even nowadays, you can go on canva.com and you can design all sorts of different things. It's pretty straightforward. I did have a team, and I think that's the other important thing, is trying to find your team, whoever that is, because there's this idea in our world that you have to do everything on your own. But when you can allow help from other people, you can move a lot faster, and things are way more interesting, because you get to be surprised by how creative they are. And it's really, really fun, because it's exciting, especially with making movies, that you have this inspiration and this idea, and then you watch other people come in and bring their ideas into it, and it just makes it all the more incredible to witness.
Okay, now we spoke about the journey, so let's come to the book. So what's your book all about, and what you have written in that?
Yeah, so the book is this first book that just came out is called Spiritual Ninja,
Okay.
and it is a guidebook actually for energetic protection. So to help you stay spiritually connected and feel protected in the state of the modern world. So it came out at a really good time with everything that we have going on right now in the world. It's really, really chaotic. And so this book gives you really, really practical tools on how to stay grounded, how to stay centered, how to feel connected, how to connect with yourself and your multidimensional layers, and how to disconnect energy that you may pick up from other people on an unconscious level, like even online. Because in the modern world, we spend a lot of time on social media, and we might see something that could be shocking to us, or we might have an internet troll come and say something rude to us, and that affects us energetically. So I wanted to create a book that could help people, um, snap out of it quickly and give that energy back and feel really solid in their own body.
Mhm. And what were the reviews by people? How did they express themselves through that book? Oh, and which made you happy to see those reviews?
So how did the what express themselves?
Yeah, what were the reviews by the audience to the readers, and what did they say about the book, and how did it?
Oh, yeah, it's been really well received, which has been very, very fun. I've been super excited because, of course, as an author, you get nervous, like, oh my gosh, like, what are people going to think, and is this going to land or resonate? And so I've got some very good feedback, and a lot of people have said that this is the best timing ever that this book could have come out, because it really, really does teach you to go inside of yourself, and get really, really solid during a chaotic period. And so it's been really fun to watch, and I've had lots of people order the book and take a picture with it, either a digital picture people are sending me with a picture with their phone, or with their Kindle, or the actual book from Amazon, because you can get it worldwide. So it's been really fun to get all these pictures from everybody, so I could share them online and create this movement really of spiritual ninjas all across the world.
Okay, so yeah, you covered everything wonderfully. Thank you very much for being here. And
Yeah.
a question again I have for you is how do you manage? You are a parent, and how do you manage parenting, your work, acting, writing, everything together? How hard does it becomes to manage all those things together?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is a constant juggling.
Yeah.
Um, it is, and I think really for me, as someone told me a long time ago, there's a filmmaker named Shonda Rhimes. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she said in an interview that she something along the lines that basically, as a mother and as a career woman, you just kind of have to accept that sometimes you're going to suck in, in one area, and you're really excelling in the other area. If you're doing really great at filmmaking, you might be dropping the ball as a mom, and then you have to go and flip that around. And I think when I heard that, it changed my life, because I was so hard on myself trying to be so perfect at every single thing.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh, okay, it's okay to, I can balance that. If I drop the ball, I can forgive myself for that, and I can go and pick the ball back up, and I can, start juggling it again, and it can work out, and I don't have to beat myself up over it. So I think that that's really what it is. And especially right now with everything that's happening in the world, it's just recognizing, like, okay, I'm going to have some moments and I'm going to get overwhelmed, and I'm homeschooling my kids, and I have a 13-year-old and a 3-year-old, and how do I do this all? And it's just accepting that sometimes you're going to have to forgive yourself for not being perfect and not being able to do it all perfectly. So that really helped me. So I hope that that will help someone else that gets to listen to this.
Okay, wonderful. So let's come. It's all almost at an end, and I have last 5 good questions for you. So what was the best advice you ever received from someone?
Mm. I think the best advice uh, ever is that choice is your superpower. And that's really my motto in life now, is that every single moment we have this choice inside of us. Some may call it free will, and I agree with that. We have a choice, and sometimes our choices are very, very limited, but we get to choose every single minute, and every little micro choice that we make will compound over time and make a huge, massive, massive change in our life. And so I really believe that by embodying choice and taking ownership of that, you get to be a creator of your life instead of a victim to it. So I think that's the best advice that anyone's ever given me, and that I really try to live by and remember every single day.
Okay. And the worst advice?
Say that again?
A worst advice?
Sorry, couldn't hear you.
Okay, a worst advice, worst.
Oh, okay, now I heard you. Worst advice. You know, that all kind of goes into, there's a couple things there. And they're people's opinions. I had a couple, we were talking about earlier, the male-driven Hollywood scene. And I had a couple of big producers or directors or managers or whatever tell me when I was in my early 20s that I was too old. And that I was too, I didn't have this or I didn't have that. And that's just not true. Like, that's just not true. You're never too young or too old to follow your dreams and make them happen. And anyone that tells you differently should go screw themselves. It's, it's true. That is the worst advice I ever got. I believed it for a period, but it just isn't true. Take that advice, that worst advice, and use that as a motivation. Use that to choose something different for yourself and say, you know what? No, thank you. I'm going to show you. And not out of vengeance, but just to really be like, I'm going to do this because I can, because I choose to, because you don't own me. And that's just the truth. Like, you're never too old. You're never too young. You're never, like, because you're a woman or because you're a man or because you're a kid or because of your race or whatever. That's all bullshit. It's just total bullshit. You can do what you want to do if you make it happen.
Okay. And how would you describe your life journey in 3 words?
In 3 words. Challenging, adventurous, and enchanting.
What did you learn from your failure?
What did I learn from these 3?
No, your failures. Like, if there's some plans or it didn't work in.
Yeah. I've learned that really, this might sound cliche, but I don't really believe in failure. I think that we can take from every single failure some kind of reason from it, and we can create something from that, and we can learn something from that. And it's really the perspective is everything, and success is an energy. And so if you're able to tap into that energy, you can be successful every single day of your entire life. And those failures are just something that you got to learn from.
Okay. And last question is, if you would like to give a message or speak about something, you can speak about.
Okay. I just want to say that I think it's really awesome what you're doing, being 16 years old, getting out into the world, putting yourself out there, and, being curious. I think that being curious is one of the most remarkable human traits that we can really have and embody. And you're doing that. So thank you so much for having me on your show and for being interested in hearing a little bit about my story. And I'm excited that you're sharing your story because it matters and it's important, and you're inspiring and you're touching people and you're inspiring me too. So thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, that was wonderful having you. Thank you very much for giving so much, sharing some wisdom and some wonderful life experience you had. And that's amazing having you. That was my pleasure having you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.